One of the predominant structure situations in a natural lake is a wide sweeping bar. The best above water observation is a weed line. The important part that you have to work and try to find out, and a guideline that you have on a big wide sweeping bar covered with weeds or such as this, or even trees, is the guideline of the base that you see right here, the base break line. The migration of the fish will come up to that base and then may move along the grass line. Very few going into the weeds. So your presentation of lures, what you're looking for in the use of markers and your trolling passes and everything, the interpretation of this big wide sweeping bar with all the fingers and things on it, is the base break line. You can throw shallow on this weed line, but most of the time the fish and make contact will move along the base before and never go back in the weeds and go on back downstairs. So this is your guideline when you're thinking of those things. You're trolling passes, but you really can see these things. It's just go up there and look at it, and then maybe throw a few markers to keep you out of the weeds and then go to work on it. That's simple. In reservoirs and even in some natural lakes, you can see a big bar. In this case, it's a cave-in, and you should have a big, wide bar out from this. It's a long break line. It's more in a flatland type thing, but it comes out there. You see it. There's a big slide, there's a big bar, and most likely it's going to be very crooked with fingers. So you go to work on it. In this case, it's clean, so it's very easy to put your lures on and go to work on it. A couple passes with the small lures and then go on with the big one. You see the fingers that might be on these washes, and when the wash occurs, it forms bars with fingers. The dirt. You could see one across there. But right now, we probably go over there and test this thing, but we happen to be fishing this shoreline. So what we look to keep our eyeballs along the shallows. We're running the small lures, see what's there. And if you look down in the water, you'll see the shoreline, you see it looks like there's a bar coming out here, big sweeping bar, sandbar. And as you keep on going and checking, you're going to see that the bar gets bigger and bigger. You're looking. This is a big bar, and most likely when you get there, it's going to have in this bar, you're going to see the big fingers. Your trolling passage will locate every one of those fingers and tell you what's there. But you above observe, keeping watching what you're doing, and the trolling at the same time you're seeing if there's any fish along there. But it's telling you everything. Now the thing about it is just one interpretation that I'm going to give to it, the interpretation of the bar where the fish might be. If you didn't find him on the passes, he wasn't there, he wasn't up on the bar yet, you've got to interpret this thing with all its fingers. So what, you have a simple guideline. The sharpest break that breaks the deepest into the deepest water. The sharper break that breaks the deepest into the deepest water. And if you look at that thing and analyze it, you'll see that one that broke at 18 feet broke to 23 feet, and the deepest water off was 35 feet. That's the contact point. There's, if you're going to wait for them to come, that's where you have to wait, right there on the cast. And so the interpretation. Over here, it broke at 9 feet, went to 12, and finally the deepest water was 24. The next one there was 16 feet, it went to 21, broke to 21 feet, went to 25, went to 29 feet. And the one that's where the fish are is at 18 feet to 23 feet, and in the deepest water over 35. Over here it was 12 feet to 14 feet to 20 feet to 25 feet. So the interpretation is there. Now the depth sounder will come in very handy here as an aid. But your observations of looking and running the lures is, plus the aid of the depth sounder, is really going to tell you what's there. This is the important part. In this particular thing is a bar between two channels. It's very important. It occurs in different ways. In this case, we have, and if you notice there, we have the water stream going both ways. That's just to indicate the direction of the water. Well, sometimes the water is coming downstream, like it's over there at that bar over there. Sometimes it may be going this way. And if you look in there, there's both ways on those things. I didn't confuse you, but the bar between the lake can occur that's going both ways. Very important. You can look at the bars. This bar between the lake is a good two streams. This is a major stream. Now the water most likely was coming from up yonder and coming down this way, and the water was running toward us. But that happens. Other times it may be the other way where it hit something and divided. So you don't know, but if you look at it, I could look at this thing and I determined that in this day, two major streams came down and come together at this point, and I got to hit that bar in between them. Well, I will find most anything in there. They come in sizes, every shape and size. If I saw any indication of that stream going up on the other side and then the one on this side, I'd go to work on it. A bar of the point sticking out up there at the tree line, and the water's up there, and I see the stream going up the other way and a stream coming this way. I'm going to work that bar between there, and that's about what I'd find. This water is coming down from up yonder. Up that way, over here, we're looking at it from another channel. Now that's the dirt. Look at the difference between those things. If that was a reef in between there, you wouldn't find too much of that stuff way downstairs if it wasn't the dirt. Here is probably maybe back in a cove, but in a narrow section of the lake. And the water flow is going from here to there. And since I saw the shoreline on one side, I saw the bar, and I saw the channel over on the left, and the channel over on the right, and then I saw the other thing out there, sticking out there on the other shoreline on the one on the right. And I figured, well, it wouldn't take much of a brain to figure the channel is there. And I got a bar between two channels. And I better work that rascal. Because when the water's over, that is a obstructive situation. Now when it gets back in a cove, we're going to see a little bit different back in the cove. And most of the time, if you go back in this cove, you're going to find maybe the same situation. Back in the cove, the bar between there. But it looks a little round to me. I don't know this there. So I didn't know about that. But if I ran my lures, and my big lures, just several passes around that, I wouldn't even keep my passes straight. I'd just kind of run contours guessing at it. And I'd soon find that that's just a great big old rounded bar in there. It doesn't happen very often, but in some lakes I expect that at low water, if the low water drop, I'm going to have probably a lot of dirt, because I see a lot of sand. I probably could see a lot of silt or something. I'm just guessing. But later I came back and found out that it was just a great big old washed brown sandbar. And the channel had been filled up and everything, but I wouldn't even pay attention to that. When I felt it with my lures on that long run around there and trolling passes, I'd say, I don't see anything here. There's nothing here. And I'd get out of there. And if I found out it looked like that, I'd get out of there. I wouldn't go back in there no more. I might go back there during spawning season, I wouldn't go anymore. Now you say Jerry is pointing to something. What she is pointing out to Gertie is that she looks way up there and you see the channel. She's pointing at it. You see the channel clean. Where the channel, one fork went this way and the channel went this way back in that, way up the headwaters. And what she's pointing out really to Gertie is the fact that there's a roadbed, a paved roadbed, coming right down to the water and going right on into the water. Now that indicated that was this bar between the two channels. And there was a roadbed that came down there, a nice roadbed, came down there and went right into the water. Now that told us that it must be a bar, a long bar, or they launched the boat or something in there. Here's this road comes down there and goes right on into the water. Here the brace goes this way and the brace goes that way, and it's very simple. That should be a bar between two channels. Well, they pulled this thing down a long time after we saw this, and we went there and looked at it. And there was the bar between the channels. The roadbed was the key on that point with the two channels on both sides. And then you can see that when the low water stage on this thing, these people came down there. That's a pretty nice road. Trying to find a launching ramp, I don't know where they ever did. And I didn't fish that, but I would know where I would fish. I would probably hit that contact point at the end on that roadbed out there where it cut off. Those rocks, contact point. I'd be sure to get there if I could. Now sometimes where you got the dirt, a lot of dirt, I looked a long time to see this one. I have a stream, I have a bar between two streams. Then I looked right straight across there to a bay. And I don't know whether you can see it, but I can see way up in the end, one little arm went to the right, one little arm went to the left. This occurs many, many times in bays. I don't care whether it's a flatlander or whether it's a lowlander or what, lowlanders and highlanders, and it's going to be there. Even in a wide flood, you'll be amazed how time you go back in these cuts and get back in there and there's a little hickey, it goes like that. And a lot of times when you see my drawings, I always put that little hickey back in there. So that gives you a pretty good view of that. But the dirt, that is a fishing situation right there. Not only do you have the deep water, but you have the shallow water for hot weather movements, and you also got the spawning area. It's all right there in one spot to the shallows back in the cove. This was a Highlander, and but it's all situated right there in that one spot. Bar. This is a feeder cut. This is a real key to all reservoirs. The main one. It takes care of the flatlanders, the wide floodplain type. It takes care of the flatlanders. It takes care of the highlands. It takes care of the canyons. It takes hold of the whole ball of wax. It's a side feeder stream cuts or washes. Here's the guideline. When a side feeder stream cut must go all the way. A wash, if it happens, a wash out a gully all the way down through there. It's got to go to deep water. It's got to go all the way. If it doesn't go the way, they are not going to use it. It becomes a dead end. You look at coves, and you just have to kind of figure that there's a water flowed down through that thing at one time, because if it hadn't, that cove wouldn't have been there. The water produced it, flowed, a stream or a wash. So the cove says the water came down through here at one time. Now if it went on out, it should have gone all the way to the river. What our creek, or whatever it was. It had to go all the way because water came down through here all the way. It had to flow all the way. And you'll find that it did in this case. That's what we will. The side feeder stream got to come out. And what it does, it will form two bars at the end. This is an observation. I was driving around the lake looking for it, and I knew that this was up at the upper end of the flatland, probably in the farming land of a reservoir. And this was way up in the upper end of it, and it'd be a lot there. And my observation around this lake showed that it did have these big arms, and probably is going to be some flat, kind of like a flatliner in certain areas. So when I got into this particular area of this lake, a wide floodplain type thing, farming land originally with the big bottomlands covered up with water, then I saw that point coming out there. Then as I went on along the road, I glanced over to the left, and I saw a bridge over there, and it was way over to one side. That told me right quick that when I went back here and looked at it, I looked over the other way and I saw that bridge, and it was way over yonder. It wasn't. This was high ground right here. So I took off of me. I said, the channel is over there. I'm not even going to work that point. And when I got over there, I knew that there was a feeder cut that came all the way. It was a short distance because the channel was right over there close to it. And here was a feeder cut that came out and it was discolored, and I looked at it and I knew that it went all the way. So I came back later and looked at this thing, see if it was like I wanted. And there it was. There was a feeder cut with the bars that went all the way. It had bars, and we had little points coming out all the way. One thing I noticed was that I had a little feeder cut because it had a little water coming down through it right here, down here on the right-hand side. You'll see that feeder cut. The inside of that bend had a big flat, but it did have brake lines and things, and up on before straightening out again, it did have some little washes and things. But right here was one that had a little bit of water in it, and that was that great big flat. And I said, I better check this out. Well, I did check it out later, and it showed it came a long ways, but it got awful shallow up at the upper end. But it did show us that it did go all the way. So I would work that. I would get right in the middle of that rascal, and I would go up till it got too shallow. I think our friend Bagshaw fished one just like that recently that amounted to about the same thing. But anyway, this is observation that my shoreline and above water stuff sent me to the fishing situations. We look at these side feeder stream cuts, and we got some other guidelines that I want to consider. When these cuts come through the flats and so on, like this lake right out there, wide floodplain type reservoir, they will not cross that flat. They will not go back down the back side of the hump. You don't figure it. You've got to have a major thing that you're going to find here is a side feeder stream cut that goes all the way. And when this occurs, lots of times, let's say we were right out there on that thing, we go down that red or black buoy line and we see where a side feeder stream cut. You look up and we see a cove way over yonder, so we know that thing probably goes all the way, because it wouldn't be a cut out here. And we see the cove they come out of way back in yonder. So it's going to go all the way. Now when we get that situation, it's going to build up a shallow bar where it comes into the channel. Now if you check out there, I bet you'll find it may be 35 feet in the channel, but at that entrance it's only 25 feet or something like that. Now this is a real key here for the presentation of lures. Now you found the side feeder stream cut on the troll because you were working the brake line into the channel, or the hump, or the ridge, and you found the feeder cut. Now you say, boy, I got to work downstairs here. I either got to do it one way or the other. I either got to troll it, or I got to anchor somewhere here and cast it, because there's a bar down yonder. Now, in the United States and other countries, you got this situation by the thousands. The Missouri River, I fish it all the way up to even way up into Montana, and you got the same situation that whole distance. Keep this in mind, that this is going to happen. That's the only place that I will allow you to cast into the channel. You can't go around out there and out in that channel. You'll never find those fish. You don't know where they are. You have nothing to cast to. But you know that with this feeder cut is going to form a bar most every time, wash the debris in there before the lake was built, and the bar is there, and so you can anchor your boat up on the corner of that thing about like that, make your cast into the channel, say at 35 feet, and bring it up this way. You may be so deep, so 45 feet or more, or 50 feet. You may have to go to a jig and get it down there and come bumping up that thing. And it's down there and it stops at 25 feet, 45 feet, 55 feet off of there. This is an observation. How are you going to take care of those deep fish out here? That's the way to do it. Now you see bars along the shoreline too, short ones. When I put this in, I didn't, you don't see too much there, but when I put this in, you know who I thought about? I thought about Harold Eden. Harold fishes the delta section in the Mobile Bay, way up. The water's pretty fresh, it might be brackish, but way up. And this is some of the areas that he will see those little cuts back in there that he better fish that thing. See the little bars coming out. And I know where Harold is. Where is Harold? That's right. Okay. It's just those that you observe the shoreline. You will see these little short bars sticking out. But this tells you that might be a structure situation here, because a bar is one, the most common. Now our problem is to find, does it go to sanctuary depth as a guideline? So we get the lures and find out if it does or not. If it doesn't go to the channel of sanctuary depth, forget it. You've already checked to see if there's any fish in there as you made your shallow trolling passes. Sometimes, off of those little bars, off of a little bitty bay sticking out up there at high water, and you go ahead and map it pretty good, and you find out downstairs, now there's a little higgy, or a little bar, a little reef, a little shallow that breaks off in that you'll find a thing. But our trolling passes will find that for you. The feeder cut, you see it? That means it's got to be something downstairs when that water flowed. So you got to get with it. Now when you have this feeder cuts that go all the way, you just have a mental picture of what you have to fish. And you see that it could be some bars that up there pretty quick after they came out of the feeder cut, went down into deep water, went across the flat or whatever happened to be there, and then it entered the sanctuary depth, which would be the channel. We say that that's it. That's the home of the fish. So you got 2 bars there, you got to check. You got 2 bars up there, you got to check. But one true trolling pass is we check them all the way. You start a trolling pass here, try to get as deep as where it breaks off, and make a pass right up that break line, come right on up in there. Go out on the other side and make a trolling pass and go right on up on there, along the edge of that break line. Not only will you see what is there, but you'll also see if there's a fish anywhere around there. A steep shore. I have to make this a structure situation because in the colder weather, our guideline, you remember, they want to take the short route to the shallows and immediately get back in bad weather. So in the colder weather, it's simple. We'll fish the steep banks. We do not pass them up. It's trolling water, but we don't figure that it's fishing water until we find out whether there's any fish to make 1 or 2 passes on it. But your guideline is in the colder part of the weather, then most likely the fish get short routes Immediate access to the sanctuary depths. Immediate, right there. And in this warmer part of the season, they're going to take the long route. That's another guideline. But here, it's fishing. The above observation can show you these things very well. If you see a high tower bridge crossing the reservoir as you went around like this, you could just about figure that this particular thing went up and down lots. It's not a causeway. It's a bridge with piers. I've noticed that. Maybe you wouldn't want to notice it, but I do. And then I look around, and if the water's down a little bit, I see it's a steep shore. But if that was full with a bridge, and I see just piers going across there, that means that they didn't have enough dirt to build a causeway across there. So that shows that I'm going to have steep stuff there right quick when I see that. Shoreline will show it to you, the rocks and things, and you got a steep shore here, so that's a steep shore. You're going to have steep. So this is a winter type shoreline situation to see if there's any fish that's come up to that and then drop back. You can see all time, feel all the time, and see all types of things downstairs. And as you see a lot of it, you see the bar, a ridge-like bar coming down. And if you see this in the water, you know something downstairs. So it could be a reef or something, a steep shore, and in colder weather, I got to check that thing. First, I check it for smallmouth in the cold weather more than anything, and then I in the spawning and pre-spawn and after spawn, believe it or not, on smallmouth, I go to the dirt. And every time you'll be amazed. On smallmouth, largemouth, the whole ball of wax, you go to the dirt. Trolling water, but they could use that bar. That's a real elite bar coming in there. And it's a cove going back in there. It's one of those entrances to the cove. And so that steep bank, you check it. Wintertime, pre-spawn. Because as a pre-spawn, he's going to go right around that corner and go up in that shallow water, up the head of that cove. So you'd have to check that in cold weather. And then in warm weather, I just stay out of the cove. There's a steep shore. But the good part about this thing, look at that red clay. Something happened here on this steep shore. And so right here close, something's going to happen. I look across the lake over there and I see all this steep shore. All that steep stuff. But down at the ends, I see red clay. Now something happened there. Or that wouldn't be that way. And that's what happened in this case. The bay washed, cut the dirt, the long bar, the long flat stuff lying in there. The whole situation, the seasonal situation right there. Steep bank cove pre-spawn, and spawn the long bar in the summer. In the fishing season. Why does it shape like that? Because the dirt is there. So when you see this point sticking out, and it's a channel between, it's a bar between the channel, and you're in that dirt area, you better figure that bar between that channel is going to be long and narrow and streaked out and going to go a long way due to the dirt. There's dirt, but it's a different kind of dirt, and you look at it, it's great big rounded stuff. I see a little wash over on here, but even way downstairs, I think it'd be the same. So I go down there and I make a couple passes, and it's just all rounded stuff. But I look up ahead and at high water mark, and I don't see any routes. This little old wash over on the side, I don't think it'd be doing it good. Then I got the one little reef up there, but it breaks up and goes down in a little part of rock, and then there's no more. If I looked at that with low water and ran it with my lures, I'd pass it up. You have to spend your time where you have the best chance to catch fish, and I wouldn't have it there. There is a tall, deep Stoop Bank Lake, mostly. But I look up there and I see some red dirt. And I go to work on that thing. And I see this is what I find. You don't see it very good, but above the bridge you'll see some just rock, straight rock. Then you see a little red dirt just to the right of that bar over on the left. That column. I see a little red dirt back in there. So something happened, and if you look in there, you see that it did. So when I see this little red dirt here, I'm going to go to work on this thing and see what's there. And I'll go with my trolling patterns, and then I'll feel that it'll come down, and that's exactly what I will end it up with. The dirt. And in that passage of those things, my trolling passage that I found on that dirt, I found that bay. You see it coming out. And then it went all the way. I had a little silt, but it went all the way. And coming down this other shoreline over yonder, maybe not work this side too much on account of the silt, but that other thing, if I look up over there, that point over there, and I feel what's over there, I'll guarantee you that the thing will go just about all the way. Now, I found those things out. And when I see the dirt, look at the rock. Look at the rock over yonder, straight up and down. But the dirt showed me I better get and find out what's here. A lot of people, Highland Lake scares the stuffings out of them. No, you don't let any of them have any fear. Don't have anything that scares you. It's just so, to me, it's so simple, spoon plugging, that you got a few basic guidelines, you got tools to show them, you got the features that the fish are going to use, the whole story is right there. We're going to move along. We have some guidelines on humps. Some of them you can see, some of them you can't. If in the sanctuary depths, say on that steep shore, you wouldn't say that the fish are going to go that way. They probably wouldn't even, they've already eliminated that hump down there because it didn't go anywhere. It didn't go to the shallows. So that means that the sanctuary depths is going to be over on somewhere on this side. You say, well, I may never run into that. Well, I'm giving you some idea in case you do. You don't go toward a straight line on a steep bank when there's a hump downstairs too much. Most of you are not out there when it's the cold, the fish are not moving on the steep bank anyway. Now the next guideline is when you're in a hump, if it does not go to the shallows, it can become a dead end. It's got to go all the way, the hump has. In other words, if I remove that hump, which is going, the fish would, they go around it some other route if it's going to head up to that other hump in the shallows. But let's just say that's gone now, that I've erased that thing, taken it all the way. If it comes to the shallows, the 8-10 foot depth, our guidelines say is this is where I'm going to get in the casting position if this thing occurs on a good bar that goes all the way. And they come up on this bar and they go up on this hump, it will, well now my guidelines going to tell me they ain't going down the backside of that thing to get shallow. I'm going to get a concentration of fish right here. And how many times as a spoon plugger you come to this hump that comes up in the water near a bar, on a bar, comes to 8, let's say it comes to 9 feet. It's in the shallows. You can bet your life that that's going to be the experience that you're going to get a great big fish on every cast. The most I ever got caught on a situation very much like this was 49 without missing. I did 41 in Arkansas, and that was the last big one that I got. But I knew that if the hump didn't come, and when I hit the top of that hump, they were there. And I knew it that the hump came to the shallows, and I better get to the cast right quick. I went to the cast, and there they were. We have guidelines on those rascals. They'll show by weeds in lakes. The humps will show in natural lakes. They will give you good guides of where they're going to be by just looking. And that's what we have to do, just look so we don't worry. And when you see a lot of islands showing, you can just bet your bottom dollar in any type of reservoir. And when you see a bunch of islands, a whole bunch of them, you can just bet your bottom dollar you're going to find a hump out there too. If you see weeds sticking up, a brush sticking up in the water, you figure it's got to be a hump. I got to check that thing out, and I'm going to troll all around that rascal, see the shape of it, and see what it really is. And the time I got through, I knew exactly what those little sticks and that little brush told me. That's a structure situation. When I see it, I'm going to go to work on it. Sometimes you can get these in a lot of lakes, especially in lakes instead of reservoirs. Even in reservoirs today, they have marked the humps with a buoy. Then you'll see fishermen at times fishing. They will tell you where a hump is. I find a lot of them by when the little swells, such you see here near the shore, when those little swells break out there, I better get out there because there's a hump or a little long strip or something out there. I got to go check it. That's another way that you'll find them. The delta situation, today I call it delta situation, and this, you got a wide floodplain out here, and it's a delta situation. You got the hump running across the stuff. You got a flat, you got a delta ridge, and you got the break lines on the inside as it breaks in, and then you got the channel. That's the situation you see. You got and so that's what you're looking at out here. Now you might, if you're familiar with this, you might say, well, I only have one ridge. Well, the reason for it, if you follow it out, I'm going to show you why you only have one ridge. The thing that you're looking at out there, that you got a drop off, you got the delta humps, and you got the flats. The main thing that I want to point out here is those little break lines where the thing drops off. The hump may be back just a little bit from the edge, and you've got the little break lines, and as it drops off, then she maybe go straight down into the channel. But the main thing I want to show you is that base break line. When you go down anywhere in that channel on the troll, say you're going to troll up the channel or you want the delta ridge, then you want where it breaks into the deep. Then if you don't come across any feeder cuts, but if you come across a wash anywhere, you better figure, I better take a look downstairs. But if you go downstairs, you've got to get down to that base break line. This one is in a wide flood thing, and I'm toward the headwaters of it, and I look across there, and I see the rock, steep rock over there, and I look up there and I see the channel coming down to my riff way up, and it looked like a base right back in here a little bit, but then I see the channel moving down just parallel to the left. Looked like it up there, come around the corner, and it's straightened down, coming down by looking at the shoreline back in there. That tells me just about where I should find something. This is in a wide flood, so I look and I find out. My lures are very easy to tell me this as it comes. Then I'm going to have a delta ridge out there somewhere, but I'm going to have a lot of displacement. I'm going to have them cut. And in flood stage, I have an inner channel. You take Kentucky Lake, it's just full of this stuff. That you're going to have a shallow on the backside where the flood originally in the Tennessee River flood over the top of those ridges out there and cut them another channel in behind it. This is a situation of a lot of these lakes, these wide floodplain type lakes, where you have a bend. You look across and you see the steep bank. You have a cove over there on the other side. That means there's a bay way over there that probably cut across any flat that happened to this over there. But you know what it tells me? I'm going to go over and check it because the channel is over there close to that thing. And that channel has cut that ridge in two. It's gone all the way. That's what I got to figure. But anyway, I think we can look it up, and I come on down and I look, and I find the ridge and where it's flowing. I got the inside in on the inside. The water is deep water, way over on that bend, and it starts turning around. And then I look downstream a little bit, and I see the steep bank over there, still on the other side. And I know that probably the channel is over there. The way this big old bend starts coming around, a long bend is over there. And so I got to see that if there is a delta ridge here at low water or covered up here, it's probably only on one side. And so that's what it is. It's only on one side. But look what happened. Here's a feeder cut that cut right through that rascal. Now, it doesn't take too good a mind to know that feeder cut, when the water was flowing, is going to go through there, and it's going to finally get over that main channel. And it cut right through it. That is a fishing situation. You can see those things by brush on them. You're driving around the lake, you cross a bridge, you might see them. And not many times will you find grass, but sometimes you do. That is clean, and the water was down a little bit, and then when it came back up, there was a little grass showing on that ridge. You'll find it with brush out there. You look out, and then you'll find markers out there, and fishermen sitting on it. Here again, I find them sometimes where the wave action, these little swells right here that you see next to the shore, out there I see them breaking. That tells me the ridge out there. And I look around, well, this is a wide flatliner, so I better get out there because there's something out there. I don't think he's a spoon plugger, but I think he's found a delta ridge and maybe a cut. Somebody caught some fish out there one time, and he says, I got to get out there. And he's standing there, and I'll guarantee you that probably he's in the wrong place. Now, when I see a spoon plugger trolling out there, I'm going to get myself out there. Sunken road beds are important because they go all the way, and there's no missing them. Now, this is happened to be, I came to this particular area, this dam, and it had a road on the back side of it, so I just took off down this road. Nice highway. And I want to know why this nice highway was here behind this dam. I'd already crossed the dam up on the top road, but I looked down and I saw this on the back side. And so I want to know why it's here. A good, nice, big road like this, so I took off down, going back the way, opposite direction from where I'd come across the dam. And when I got down through there, I saw where the road coming up the floodplain from way down behind this dam, it just went straight down the valley. Here it came up a nice paved road that came right up behind the dam, and all at once it stopped and made a right-hand turn and came up behind the dam. Now what that told me was, why did that road make that right-hand turn and it ended right here behind this dam? Because the old road didn't make no right-hand turn. Most likely it just went right straight on up this valley to build the dam, so they had to bypass it. Now that didn't take much to figure that out, did it? Because I saw the road behind the dam, came up there and then just cut and took off up behind the dam. So I went up on the other side, and I'm going to go back across that thing, up that, go back across this way. But before I went, you know what I did? I picked me up a great big rock. And I went on the top side and watching. I was in the right-hand lane this time. And I just kept going. I kept watching that road, watching that road. And when I got to that point where that right angle turn was, I stopped the car and jumped out, and I put some rocks on the post of the guardrail. Then when I went on the inside and was trolling this place, the Riprap, and I kept looking at those rocks, and when I saw the rocks up there, then I made a few passes and look what I found. That's what I looked at. Now, what I found in this case was what I call the alligator. You've heard me talk about this. This is something so I can see all over this lake, so it's my landmark so I don't ever get lost. And there, right going, my rocks I put on the post was right opposite this, and I was looking at my marker over there. So I said, I'm going to check this thing out later. And when I checked it out later, there was my road. Now, it took me a long time to tell you about that, but when it's done so fast that when you get doing observations, you can find this before you can talk about it. Keep your eyes open to see what's there, and you will keep yourself out of trouble. Now, when I looked out at this thing, I knew that there was a sunken roadbed there. Probably pretty deep in this big bay. There's a sunken road out there. And you ask me how I know. When I looked up to the right and the left, I saw a roadbed coming in. I saw it up on the hill, on this way and over on that way. And that told me that the old road had to go down and cross in that here. There was a sunken roadbed there. And then when the low water came, there it was. I saw the abutments down there. But this is how I knew the thing was there. This was the key. And so I went to work on that later on. Another thing is a roadbed that you see in a reservoir. You see a road coming down, and the reservoir is completely full of trees. I mean, just solid. And so one of the best things to tell you how to get in this lake is look through the trees, where the trees, the old road that was there, is going off in through the trees, and so that's a good launching route because you can just follow that route. A lot of times you get out in it, and you may get in one that is rotted out, but there's your roadbed. And it's headed right toward that far bank, and I guarantee you it's probably lined out with brush all the way along, just to keep you right on it. It went all the way. It had to go all the way. So these observations you have to keep in mind. Hedgerow. You don't find many of these in wild areas, but when originally they didn't have to go in the boondocks to build big reservoirs. They just built them where it was convenient, and there was a lot of farming land and a lot of pasture land, and most of them had them fenced and so on, and then they built the lakes, and the old fence rows and things were still there. There's a guideline that high water, here's a path all the way in. You can see them where they come out, may be posts with barbed wire on them. And you may get in an area where there's so much farming land that all the hedgerows is going to go, like this one. You can tell you there by watching the hedgerows, the cattle, for instance, the fences and things that they built went all the way down to the channel. So the hedgerow is something that you just don't pass up if you know this is some deep water off of it. The dam is very important. This one, you head upstream. There's all types of dams. There's dams in Highlands. There's Jerry over there doing something behind that one. And I think she was trying to see if there's any gold in those rocks. But Highlands, and you can see them. Then you have some real tall ones. There's one in North Carolina, 300 feet. You've got so all kinds of dams. This is the lowland dam that goes all over. This is wide floodplain, like on the Mississippi River. You will have them on the Arkansas and the different rivers. The dam is important because something happens there. Something is if it's on a big river, you're going to blow the dam where it comes through in the tail race. You're going to have migrations on the annual route. Here's my favorite town, a flatliner with the riprap and a low water stage, especially if it's a flood control dam. This is my real favorite because Here, everything is exposed on the low water. Flood control down. They pull it down. And when I want to fish one of them, I call the Corps of Engineers and I say, what's the water level? And he tells me. And if it gets down to say 206, then I take off. Because I love to catch 5 and 6 pound bass on a 500 against the riprap when it's pulled down, because the watercolor is perfect. Yeah, little things that do. The riprap is a fishing situation. The first thing you do is drive across the dam. See what's on that side. When you come back this way, look out and see what's on the back side. Dive across that dam. You go all the way looking the riprap over. See where the dam turns, if it does. And there's a guideline that I use on these long dams on flatlanders. If the dam turned, something happened. And most likely, that's the end of the low water pool. And that's just the way it is. If the dam makes a turn anywhere, something happened. And there's an old friend, Tom Coleman, running that riprap. Had a ball, didn't we, Tom? And I think I made a tape showing you how I fished the riprap. But that is a structure situation. You can have, when you cruise the lake, you'll find the dam, cruise the dam, you'll find out where where the discharge was from the original channel, if it was so. And this will show you. And so you see the tail race on the back side, you see where the old channel up there. So that would be a hot spot. That means you have to fish that particular spot. And be sure that you're aware of it. For me to find those things, I just drove across the lake, the top of the dam one time, looked both sides, and there it was. Then I made me a marker and got my line sight so that I could find that hot spot. And you see the tail race, which is a fishing situation. And behind the dams, you're always aware of this, because the wind, the weather can get so bad up on the upper part of the lake that you can't get on there. You can't fish it. But the tail race, usually, regardless of the conditions, how big it is or what it is, it's fished. And it's always got some kind of, most of the time it has all species. And on annual runs, the spawning runs, you can have a ball. Whatever's running, white bass, crappie, the whole ball of wax. You get into the big ones, you'll see the riprap behind these dams. And they go right on downstream. They just keep going for miles and miles. And a lot of these ripraps, or these tail races on big reservoirs, just goes down and hits the headwaters of the lake below it. Yeah, I think Steve, he's sitting in here somewhere. He knows about those big ones, and I think the boys that went down to Pickwick knows about those big tail races. This is a very important one for when you're driving around a lake. You drive around the lake and look. You look for the watercolor. And anytime you see a causeway going across a natural lake or any kind of lake, it doesn't make any difference, just like this one sitting out here. There's part of a causeway over yonder in that bay, Hampton Bay. There's a bunch of riprap over there. And when I'm fishing this thing, I go over and check that riprap. And so all these feeder cuts, everything is out here. This shows you the contact points to the riprap. We've talked about this before, but you can see them. I have guidelines. I've spoken about those guidelines, how far I work them and everything. But this is a fishing situation that you have to work. You have to go there and check it out. Trolling is the best way to find it. Find what's there. You check the depth on the troll, and this is where they're 500. The thing is clean. You can have trees all over the whole mess. You can have bushes all over the reservoir. But where this cut that causeway across there, I'll guarantee it's fishing water right there. It's clean. And this is the greatest place I know in the world for you to train in keeping lures in position on the troll. Tipping the rocks. Tipping the rock. You're beginning to learn how the feel goes and how to keep this lure in position. and how to come out and get it away. It didn't move back and it tip it. And so you can just really work that rascal. Very important. This is nothing. The only thing you can do there at a certain time, you may want to jig those posts. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a causeway. It will come in all shapes. Now, lots of times you may not know of where the bar pit came from, but they had to get that dirt from somewhere to build that causeway. And sometimes it's off the side. Now, in the St. Johns River, it's usually off the side in Florida. But in a lot of places, it will be off to the side. And you got break lines over there in the bar pit, and I found one very much like that, and it was just the bar pit had so many fish in it you couldn't know what to do with them. But this is few and far between. Most of the dirt that is replaced the bar pit is right along the causeway. Now, if you look at this, where this has happened, you just don't throw the riprap. You have to throw the outer break line too. The one on the outside. In that case, you got a break line that comes down and makes a curve. There's the dam where the water goes through. So this is a very common thing. And many times, if you're not aware of this situation, you pass up the best one, the best part. It's not along the riprap next to the road. It's on one of those break lines on the bar pit. And here again, the channel will change. They cut the channel in two and put the channel somewhere else. You guys that fished Monroe in that networking event, the 3 Cubs, if you didn't find that causeway and you didn't find that cut and where the old channel was stopped off and went over to where you saw the bridge, if you didn't find that situation toward the upper end of Monroe, you probably missed watercolor that was better due to the causeway, and probably missed the hotspots. And the hotspots, of course, are those next to the cutoff. Now, from the cutoff up there out to where they started a new channel coming around, I fished that many times. Terry would say one afternoon in that area we caught 76 bass. I could tell a story about how much line was ringing, but I am not going to do that. But how many I find? Did you find it? Did you find it, Dave?
I wasn't there.
Yeah, you didn't go. But anyway, the hottest spot I've found on these situations is that streak from the dam where the cutoff was out to where it started making the change. That little section right there at the top. So in your trolling pattern along the riprap and looking at the situation, if the bridge has moved way over onto one side, you can just about bet in many cases, in order to build the riprap, they just built a channel and divert the water on and built a bridge and divert the water on there. But you also had the old channel on the back side, on the other side. So you got all kinds of hot spots there. There is some guidelines to the basic guideline. I gave you some guidelines in that first section of what makes the fish tick. And then some guidelines and things that you should observe to take care of that. Control the depth and speed on or around the features the fish use in their movements, migrations. That's a total story right there. The other total story is up there. That's all guidelines. So how the fare? It's just get there and get with it. Right there. Start right there. Just like I talked to you. All of them the same. I look for new lakes. That's the reason I fish most of them in the United States. I want to look because I know exactly what's there. I know exactly what I want to do. So why do I fear? I have no anxiety whatsoever. And you shouldn't either. If you don't know in presentation of lures now, if that gives you any problem at all, you just get this little booklet and you read that and you read it all the way through, and then you go on the lake and you come back and read just that little one. Just study that little bitty one. And you'll say, well, this isn't so difficult after all, after you know the hope, some of the things that we talked about. Now we come to the best one. To eliminate the fear and how to find what is there, how to find where the fish are there, where the problems exist, is our clubs and a jamboree. Here is where you're going to get some answers to reduce all the fear. Here is where you're going to find the answers that I've talked about. Here is where you're going to get the personal help. Here's where you hear the problem. Here's where you hear the stories, all the big lies and everything, which is a part of fishing. Here is where the fellowship that you never dreamed is going to help you to reduce any anxiety, any fear, or any ever being scared when you look out there on that water. You say, does the eating help? You're not kidding. Right here is a fellowship that you're going to learn what fishing is all about. It's not trying to beat that other guy. Just as soon as you try to beat the other guy, you're going to start going downhill. It becomes a chore, and pretty soon you'll put up a while. Your ego will keep up you in there long, but in the long run, you're going to become a worse fisherman than you were when you started. And eating is a big part of this, removing the fear. The fellowship that we will have here, the teaching that we will have here on the water that we talk about, the problems that you get these guys who have solved that problem, get you on the water and talk about it and clear that thing up so you're completely remove the fear. And to me, here is where I relax. The peace and the quiet and what fellowship means and how I say what fishing is all about. As to finish this up, just a few little quotes. If you and I desire to consistently catch fish whenever and wherever we go fishing, we must control the depth and speed of our lures, our bait on and or around the bottom features, structural breaks, break lines the fish are using in their movements and migration. That is the total story. If no catches are made when fishing in the right places with correct depth and speed control, we better figure the depth and speed control is not yet deep enough. If a spoon plugger desires to become a good, successful fisherman, whenever and wherever he goes fishing, he must answer all successes and failures in terms of depth and speed control. This is that last paragraph. In terms of depth and speed control, nothing else, such as size, color, action, odor, tackle, items, casting ability, oxygen, pH, etc., etc., etc. You do not answer your successes and failures. I could talk a week on this, but let me give you an example. Let's say you're fishing with a guy and you're fishing with a 16-pound line and he's fishing with a 6-pound line, and you're casting a little light jig and you're working pretty deep, and he's catching the fish and he's bragging about, and you're not doing so good with your 16-pound line or 15-pound line with this little small jig. He is, pretty soon he's saying, you better change your line because I changed mine down to a small size so that he couldn't see it. Well, you know my reaction to that. I want him to see me. I want him to know I'm around. And if I let him know I'm around, I'll never spook him, and I can catch him. I can catch him right in a ball of the motor if he knows I'm coming. This case wasn't that. That wasn't the secret. I was fishing with the 16-pound line, same size jig, same weight, and you had the 6-pound or 4-pound line. My depth and speed control was affected by the diameter of the line. I couldn't get the depth and speed control together at the right time, just exactly right, because I had too much water drag on my other line. So my depth and speed, especially my depth and speed control, my speed control was off, because when I changed the speed a little bit, the drag of the line got my jig out of position too fast. But when I changed my line down to your diameter line, then I could handle my depth and speed control on that small jig and that small line just as good as he did, and we'd both start catching fish. Now, there's a story that you answer all successes and all failures in terms of depth and speed. This is when your interpretation becomes good and starts growing. Just grow, grow, grow by this simple little thing that I'm going to answer. I'm going to determine to answer all my failures and all my successes in terms of depth and speed control. When you get that, then you got it made. I gave literature. This will give you a little review. I gave you a little review, a few comments that I want you to look at. If you, this will maybe remind you of what I said about. And with that, good fishing to you folks.